Greetings, good morning, good afternoon. This is Tandasi's Shimaringa here on Rootwork on Black Liberation Media. This is my first time being up here, I believe, since the name change. I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are doing well. Please like, subscribe, and share. I got to get that out the way first. Like, subscribe, share. Like, subscribe, share. We are still in this conundrum thing doohickey with um, YouTube. So please go to the Patreon. That information should be in the show description. Go to the Patreon, become a subscriber, become a sustainer, please. And like, subscribe, and share the video before the end because you're probably going to get all caught up and forget about it. Need you to like and subscribe and share. Do all that now and get it out the way. So again, my name is Tandasi's Shimaringa. This is Rootwork on the Black Liberation Media platform. How y'all doing? I see y'all coming into the chat. Hopefully, we are going to be able to let y'all in and have discussion with these two powerful sisters I got on deck today. Sister Doctor Sister IFe JIe and Sister Tiara Mbonisi on her way to being a doctor. Sister. Ain't that right? She well on her way. I'm just regular old Tandasi's way. I'm a journalist, author, and commentator. So let me give you a little bit of background. Want to talk about Kendrick and Drake and this beef, and it's bigger than beef. Is it bigger than what is it? Was there a winner? Did black women lose? Did black men win? Did the culture win? What is going on? So much happening. I remember Tony Baker, the comedian, said if it wasn't in June, it was toward the end of May. He's like, stop playing that song. You won, man. We feel you. You won. He wasn't through yet. And if y'all don't know by now, he definitely won. But who else won? Were there any winners? Were there any losers? I don't know. But that's why we're here today. We're going to chop it up. So let me bring on my guests. IFe JIe is a South Central Los Angeles native and brings a unique African sensibility, pride, and aesthetic to her art and work as a hip hop activist, artist, and scholar. She's currently the host of Street Sankofa and the co host of Cut to the Chase on 90.7 FM KPFK in Los Angeles. IFe JIe received both her bachelor's and master's of arts in African American Studies from Georgia State University and her PhD from UCLA. Blue and gold, baby, blue and gold. Tiara Mbonisi is a passionate womanist, writer, educator, and creative emerging from Oakland, California, deeply rooted in social justice, women's empowerment, and storytelling through mass and digital media. Tiara has built a career on these foundations. She earned her BA in Africana Studies from San Francisco State University and is now in her second year of graduate studies in the Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department at Georgia State University. So let us welcome IFe JIe and Tiara Mbonisi to the stage. How y'all doing today? Hold on, look like your mics are. Hold on.
Thank you.
Ife, I believe your mic is muted on your end. Uh-oh, come on now.
You gotta press the mic button.
Come on, sis. We need your voice.
It should be at the bottom of your screen.
Sis.
There you go.
Good morning. I'm literally looking like where's Waldo moment. Trying to find it. Good morning, my sister.
That didn't happen. Okay.
Yeah, that did. I got nervous real quick. Good morning. What's good, my family? It's good to be on this program. It's good to be on this program. Thank you.
It's good to have y'all on the program. We had some mix-ups, but we getting it done. So yeah. Thank y'all so much for being on the show today.
Of course.
So when the track first dropped, there was concern, there was chatter out there about Black women and children being collateral damage. And there were think pieces out there. There was a lot going on, a lot flying back and forth. And then they had the pop out, the Juneteenth concert.
The pop out was dope. I ain't gonna hold you. It was dope.
I didn't realize it was on Amazon Prime. I usually don't watch Amazon Prime, but of course I saw the clips later. And I'm gonna be honest with you,
Yeah.
seeing all them black folks, brothers in particular, dancing with each other on stage. What so many people are saying this represents for the West Coast, what it represents for LA, and then the behind the scenes of the video out in Compton. And then I had no idea the video was dropping yesterday. So the fact that we're doing this today,
Perfect.
thing is perfect. So it's
I've been crip walking over my
Exactly.
my hopscotch in the back.
Right.
yeah. So I want to acknowledge the sense of black joy that so many of us are feeling, especially those of us West Side, right?
Mhm.
But there's also again there's that little troubling undercurrent, I believe, of the women and the children and the quote unquote the misogyny and the accusations of pedophilia, as some people have said, that is used as fodder in a beef war, but is not brought up or thought about any other time. But I said, let me go see. The one thing about me, if I don't know, I know who do know.
Mhm.
That's why I said, let me go get IFe JIe and Tiara to come help me chop this up. So, IFe, I'm gonna go with you first because you from LA. I'm sorry, Tiara.
No,
LA and Oakland got their own little thing anyway. But we
I
all
love
West,
Lil Russell. That's my new guy
we all
lately.
West Coast. We all united. But IFe, I'm gonna
Yeah.
start. What you got to say about this, sis? What's on
Yeah,
your?
so there's a lot, there's so many pieces. And first and foremost, thank you for having me on this program. It's an honor to be able to be in a space with these powerful women. So thank you for this moment. I think it's really interesting to talk about so many intersections that happened when this diss track came out. This whole beef from the very beginning was popcorn in the hand, watching it transpire on your couch. It was very juicy and delicious to watch, right? And at some point, I think that we started to get more critical about it. What were we watching exactly?
Mhm.
I was talking to a friend of mine in Leimert Park, and he had something that was really interesting to say. And a part of me agreed with him. And at some point, the hip hop is so dynamic because there's some part of us that just wants to have fun. And then there's another part of us that has to not, like, you can't unsee some of the contradictions of what we are experiencing. One of the things that I do want to address is the nature that the song is so powerful, but it really is a beef. It's a beef song.
Yeah.
And you think about the nature of hip hop beefs, it could be like social canceling. And there's something that could be very interesting in that. And that's where the fodder and the power dynamic comes in it. So what happens when somebody gets pulverized on the track, right? It does create a certain kind of power dynamic that other people end up becoming a victim of, like the women, like the children. So yes, I'm making this song that's making us all feel so empowered because it's the not like us that we love. But the truth is that it's the song that's targeting another black man. And when I was talking to my colleague in Leimert Park, I was like, man, we can't unsee that. Even though that's not what we want to focus on, it really is a moment where the culture has capitalized on the destruction of one for the benefit of the other. And that's not necessarily healthy. That could be really, really toxic because everybody's wondering, well, what about Drake? What does he do now? Because the song is just so big and it's so everywhere. What are the consequences socially? What does he lose? Right? Some of that is definitely tied up in some other dynamics. What are the women losing? So we talked about the video. It was a very intentional moment where Kendrick put his wife and children in the video in a living room that I just love the scene because it had plastic on the couch, like your grandma's house back then.
Come on.
So it's the subtleties of the art that you just love and appreciate about Kendrick Lamar. It's that flavor that we just adore, his detail, But he intentionally put his wife and his children in that video and showed them in the black joy of dancing and just celebrating each other as family. That was a visual comeback of, no, I'm a family man and I'm with mine and we are a unit. So there's also that as well. You know, there was a diss for Drake about his family and his family unit, his children, and you know, so for Kendrick to kind of diss him on that, the counter is that we also see this really powerful image of a Black family and Black joy and a very, very, really cool modern aesthetic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just highlighting the contradictions. I think that some of what we have to acknowledge is that it's a beef. I think that we do see that our children and the women sometimes are the victims of the beef because we're the this is the punchlines. We become the punchlines, you know. And what are the consequences socially of that? Sometimes it is the canceling. Sometimes it is the ignoring of the real issue. Is that man really a pedophile? See, you know what I mean? It makes you start asking stuff like that. Like, is that really happening? We know it is because we see the Diddy's and the, what is the other guy? Epstein's and all these other Stings and Steins and people not keeping their hands to themselves. You know, so we know it exists, but now we have to have that conversation because we can't not unsee it again. Yeah. Those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you so much for that, sis. Tiara?
It's Tiara.
Woo! Tiara. Hey, correct me.
And pronounce it another way.
Correct me.
I just have so much. First of all, I just love a good hip hop beef. I feel like beef is a component to hip hop. It's not the only component. It's not the most positive component to hip hop. In terms of Black women and children being kind of like casualties or used as petty fodder, I feel like if niggas are going to call each other out in a beef, call each other out on some real shit. You had Tupac, fuck your
I
click.
didn't know you cuss. Why you didn't tell me that, Dondi, before we
Wait,
go ahead.
Can we?
IFe, knock it off. Stop it.
You had
it's YouTube. You can cuss.
You have Pac F your clique and the clique you claim and talking about he F Biggie's wife. And it's very common for rap niggas to be like, I effed a woman you love, a woman you like, but it's different to be like, but what about them young girls you be preying on? And what about your wife I heard you be putting your hands on? So some of the conversation was like, are these real allegations? Are these fake allegations, right? So we're still sifting through that, but I'd rather Black men call each other out about the atrocities against Black women and also call each other out. Like, since you talking, are you raising your sons? Are you raising your kids? Like, if we gonna go there, we could talk about word and money and who got the most clout or who has the most streams. And so, like, yeah, women and children are a casualty to one degree, but also we keep saying that we want men to call each other out on the things that they, and on the ways in which they harm Black women, Black families, Black communities. And to me, this was a master class on how to do it.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the track itself, in terms of like who won, I feel like the culture won. I feel like Drake is gonna be okay because he's Drake, and that was kind of his whole flex. Is like, I'm a mainstream rap engine kind of thing, so he's gonna be okay, you know.
Ain't gotta worry about him.
But the beef was about multiple artists, but the beef became about mainstream rap versus rap that's for the culture and for the people, and for Kendrick and for Drake to say Kendrick is rapping like he's trying to free the slaves. And for Kendrick to do Ken and Friends in a pop out on Juneteenth and then drop the video on the 4th of July. Top tier Gemini pettiness, but for the culture. I just feel like ultimately it's for the culture. Like, there's some things about it, especially when you talk about insinuating that you're gonna pop somebody like what. I'm just like all into it, but there are some violent undertones to it. But mostly, I feel like it's for the culture.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You know, I think that there's a moment where we really started to feel. There's a line in the show where he says, "We needed this from Nip dying and Kobe dying. We needed this. And being from South Central Los Angeles, he was right. You could feel the synergy in this city. 4th of July was off the chain, baby. It was out till 4 o'clock in the morning, still popping them daggone firecrackers all night. And the thing that I said about that night, I was like, man, we are lit tonight. We lit tonight as a city, and a part of that was Kendrick. We have to say that he put a little sauce on the city, dropping the video even on 4th of July. And you're right, that was extremely delicious and petty. I had no idea that it was dropping either. So in the middle of the barbecue, everybody's like, turn on the, it was a classic moment.
It's like the title, They Not Like Us, to me is like a Negro spiritual title.
Right on.
Is when you have Black people dancing to it on Juneteenth, on the 4th of July. I think like They Not Like Us is just not like West Coast against Canadian rappers. It's literally like Black folks against the world, like They Not Like Us. And that's what I felt like when you see groups of Black people chanting it. It feels like an affirmation and a call to action, and it
becomes bigger. It becomes huge. And there, I want to say this too. There's also a moment where I want to recognize that there are structures and people in place that don't want to see hip hop maintain that type of power and synergy. So we have to be very mindful, because Kendrick, in a way, did something that we haven't seen in a long time, which was bring so many people into one space on one vibration. He is definitely going to have folks that are going to try to undermine that energy. People that will intentionally try to dismantle that community building that we saw on that stage. I've already seen, and I talked about this before in Los Angeles, where rappers came together and had truce and all of that. And then you get what I call hip hop COINTELPRO. They come in and they start doing little crazy stuff.
Well, we've been told
the
LAPD. LAPD was active in dismantling the truces.
So that's the thing that I want to acknowledge as well, that Kendrick did his job. He did his part. And I think it's our part now to ride the wave. And if anything, I do want to say that he made what, as a Black woman watching his video and listening to his music, he definitely centered Black women. I didn't feel as a woman that I lost in my listening to his music. I actually felt like, him putting his family on that video was powerful.
Yeah, starting off with his family. And somebody told me that the director of the video is the guy Drake accused of sleeping with his wife. So the whole thing was it's like, these are my people in my family. So you running your mouth, but you don't know what you're talking about. And we saw over here.
Wow.
One thing that I wanted to uplift that happened on Juneteenth. My dad is from South Central, grew up in South Central, then got moved to Inglewood, and he came down to the Bay to study at UC Berkeley. So like the history of like social justice and resistance in my family is really big, especially in terms of working in the Black community. And so on Juneteenth, you had the pop out happening in LA, and you had a Juneteenth festival happening in Oakland, and the Juneteenth festival in Oakland got shot up and 4 people died. Whereas you had Crips and Bloods in the same building in LA, just peace, and it's popping. And so you see both extremes of where the culture can go when it's united and when it's positive, and where the culture can go when niggas don't even know their history. They just showing up to the Juneteenth barbecue, not even knowing what the meaning of Juneteenth is. And so I think even a part of this cultural moment on a hip hop end is a history lesson. Like, what is the meaning of Juneteenth? What is the meaning of the 4th of July? And if we gonna beef, what are we actually gonna beef about? Like, what do we stand on in terms of like our morals? I think that's important.
I want to go to a comment quick. I'm trying to get some of y'all comments in. Some of y'all talking slick. You're gonna find out you sent to the cornfield with a quickness. And if you're too young for that reference, I ask somebody. But Joshua Ingram says, but the contradictions, because if we look at the crowd for the Jeff Bezos Presents Kendrick and Friends, they were in fact not like us, and this is a theme of K. Dot's career.
I need to relook at that. I don't know. I understand what he's saying.
Is he saying that Jeff Bezos funded it? Like, what is he saying?
No, he's saying that
Yeah.
there was one criticism of the cost of the tickets, which I don't follow hip hop anymore. I'm not a hip hop head.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making the assumption that everybody's tickets are cost prohibitive and expensive.
$100, yeah.
But also that, well, I mean, Jeff Bezos, the billionaire, it's Amazon. But the point being is that he's saying that
did Amazon produce this? Were they like the producer of the
on Amazon Prime? Yeah.
Oh,
it was carried on.
People were streaming it on Amazon Prime if you didn't buy the ticket to watch it in person. Okay.
Right. But I think what he's saying is that the crowd, those who actually could afford and got in, the majority, or if 2/3 of them, if not half, a bunch of them, too many of them, did not look like us or were not like us. Which
I seen a lot of Negroes, niggas
in the crowd. Yeah, I don't know about that one.
That's who I saw.
And then you got to think about it. The lineup was so West Coast. I mean, you have to think about it. He popped out. He didn't just do his thing. The best line of the day. LA got something to say. You know, it was the play on that moment of Outkast going to the award show. You know, they started off the concert. LA got something to say. And you got all of these kind of underground, upcoming West Coast artists. The whole entire show. That was not a crowd. That was just a lot of. There was a lot of Black folks there. Just look at the lineup. The lineup just tells you kind of alone.
And you had E40 narrating, so he even linked. You know, he linked the West Coast by bringing out the Bay to the pop out, which I really appreciate.
No doubt. I will say this though, because what they're talking about is just the commercialization of hip hop. Now, it would have been different if that was a free concert in the middle of, you know, I don't know, because of Kia Forum or something. I don't know, you know, that would have been different because that would have been for the culture. That would have been for the people. That would have been, y'all need to get this energy and we're going to give it to you on Juneteenth and raise the vibration up in the city. At the end of the day, hip hop still is an industry. And we can talk about the contradictions within the industry because you will see that there's some people that have access to hip hop when it becomes commercialized. Who can afford to go to the Coachella? I ain't never been to Coachella.
I ain't never been to Coachella.
I never been able to afford the ticket, you know? So there's a dynamic there. We have to acknowledge there's some truth to many of us from South Central Los Angeles, from our part, maybe Compton, from that part, maybe we weren't the majority. But that doesn't mean that folks that look like us weren't there. We might have came from Riverside.
Well, I'm sure he's not. I'm sure we were there. I think the concern or what he expressed was it was a lot or too many that was not like us. But he also said that this is emblematic of Kendrick's career, which I don't really know. But here's
that's
the
that's the culture in general.
I watched the audience. It was very white from what I saw. And to Audrey's point, Audrey did a comment. LA is becoming less Black. So
I mean, all the Black cities are becoming
LA in general. And there's so many things that are going on in this conversation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dynamics to that. That is true. There are some things that are not Kendrick. That is conversation that is larger than Kendrick.
Buying tickets? Can you like put a cap like white people can only buy 25% of these tickets on Juneteenth? That would be lovely, but I don't think that's a thing because they stay showing up at the concerts.
I mean, to be honest with you, it is an industry, and who can afford it? It's the capitalism of the country that we live in. Whoever can pay can play. Yes, and we can criticize that, no doubt. And maybe Kendrick will do something for the people that's free to address that very issue. Like, we didn't get to really enjoy this as much as we could have because we weren't there. I think that's what the brother's point is.
If it didn't stream on Amazon, right, I wouldn't have seen it. If it wasn't on YouTube, I wouldn't have seen it because I wasn't in LA that day. So I got to participate through clips on YouTube, through clips on social media. Right. So sometimes we do have to use the big corporations to get the message out further. And when we charge for things, Tyler the Creator, E40, the other people, the kin and friends, you know, it's nice to be able to break somebody off for their work. And I always want people to be compensated in a world where you need money to thrive. So I'm not like the amount of money people pay for Beyonce tickets, that
They're
pop out
fans.
ticket was nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nothing. And that's why I said I don't think that we should make this a Kendrick thing. I don't think that we should give him that criticism of Kendrick made his concert too expensive and it isolated Black folks from coming. That would not be a fair narrative. That's something that we could address as hip hop culture in general, though.
Yeah.
That could be a conversation. That's not a Kendrick thing. That's a hip hop thing. You know, and I think that's why a lot of artists kind of do those block party type shows because we're conscious of that, you know, because once you get into the beast and you get into the system of the industry of music, you got to produce. You got to put the numbers on the board. You got to make the money. You got to make the profit. And some artists are so down and know that they try to balance that out, you know? So we'll see. Let's just watch the show, man. Kendrick is liable to do some amazing things in the upcoming year because he knows the fact that he did the song at the pop out set, what was it, 6 times?
Yeah.
5 times?
Like
he knows that this song is going to literally be his legacy. That he's going to be performing it until he's 60, 70 years old. So let's just see what he does with it.
I saw a video. I think somebody's college or high school band was doing They Not Like That.
Baby, the churches, when the churches are singing it on Youth Sunday, it's officially in the culture. It's a part of who we are, you know? So
here now.
It's okay.
I think
oh, go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
He also proved because people were talking about like his sales in comparison to Drake's sales. And when J. Cole was still in the battle, his critique,
which I love the way he politely said, I don't want any part of this guy.
he put in and then he pulled out. When he put in, one thing he did say, he was giving Kendrick his props, but he was also talking about like how Kendrick doesn't drop that often. I feel like Kendrick made it a point that it's quality over quantity for him. He doesn't drop that often because he doesn't have to. Because when he drops, he has something to say, and his fan base is actually going to listen because they played that track 6 times in a row, and the audience knew it word for word.
And it was with him every single rotation. Was like, come on, we with you. We can do it again. We can do it again. Let's go. Yeah.
So like I was saying,
Schoolboy Q says the same thing. I've heard that that's a TDE kind of sentiment. Their tribe really prioritizes themselves as artists and not creative slaves. You know what I mean? Just there to produce music for the sake of producing music. You know, I've seen a lot of them say that same sentiment. Like, we're gonna do it because it feels right. It feels good. We love that though. We love that about TDE.
The videos and the memes have been wild around this song. I've already said I'm not a hip hop head, but I saw one meme that had me almost in tears laughing. They did a cartoon. They took a scene from Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks. This is the World War II film, and they superimposed Kendrick, Drake, and J. Cole in the cartoon. And the scene was a Nazi, and a U.S. fighter were fighting each other, and basically Kendrick is killing Drake. Drake was calling for backup, and J. Cole was too afraid to come up the stairs.
Right.
And then when Kendrick comes out, because J. Cole is like, he lets him live. That is like, everybody's not going to get that, but I'm like, this is insane. What this has done to other people's creativity. Other people are popping out. Kendrick has just made people. What's the brother's name? Russell. I don't got his name. The Laker.
Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook. I ain't never seen him that happy.
That's all I saw from Russell Westbrook. That's all I saw. He was so happy. He was so excited.
He was so happy.
But like, that's really and let's talk about that real quick, Johnny, because I think seeing Black Joy, there's a space that we definitely hold for the father of the women, right? The father of the children. But I also want to acknowledge the black boy joy is what they call it, right? I do want to acknowledge that because to a certain extent, one of my favorite parts was I think the guy's name is Hitman. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes I get my my Negroes mixed up, okay? But I want to say his name is Hitman. But he was holding a baby. This is the
I saw
brother
that.
that's the
I saw that.
father of another artist, and
Mm.
he recently got out of prison. His son is already on doing his thing. You know, he gets him on a track, and now he got a couple hit songs. You know, and so that guy is definitely like living his best life. You know what I mean? Getting a second chance at life. Older brother, he's probably in his mid 50s. You know what I mean? But he's so happy to be just in the game of hip hop music. He's on the stage at the pop out with a baby on his hand. You know, so just to see Black manhood, the joy of Black fatherhood, the joy
Yeah.
of Black camaraderie. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that was very, I love seeing Russell Westbrook dancing his little heart out all throughout that daggum stage, and everybody dapping each other up. And, you know,
My
and
bad.
when you
He's not
saw
a Laker. He's a Clipper. My bad. My bad. He's a Clipper,
what he
not a
said,
Laker.
he's a
He's
Clipper. Okay,
sorry. My
excuse
bad.
me.
I get him
Excuse
mixed
me. I
up.
just knew it was Russell Westbrook. That part I knew.
Mm-hmm.
But you feel me? There's a moment though that we really love seeing that. And when you saw the nuance of the people, like, oh, that's such and such from this tribe. And then you can say, oh, that's such and such from that tribe. And you
I'm
see
glad that you're
them.
calling it a tribe because that's what it could be.
Yeah.
It gotta be. It don't gotta be a gang.
Not, you know, Robin D.G. Kelly, I have to give him credit for that. He gave me that and I put it in my vocabulary and I never dropped it ever since. I'll never use that word intentionally or not in combination with gang again. I always say tribe. But that's Big Hit and his album is Fire. Yeah. Big Hit. That's what I said, that's Hitman, right? But that's the moment that I also want to acknowledge. Big Hit was the dude that was holding the baby.
Yeah.
You know, and he's from a certain tribe. And you see other people when you can appreciate the dynamic of what's happening on that stage. That is Black Boy Joy West Coast edition, baby. And that was beautiful to see.
And it's accountability because they did have to truce to be on that stage together to take that big picture where it's bloods, it's different tribes in the picture. But also we talking about They Not Like Us, but there were so many tracks that led up to it, and the two tracks where they like critique each other's families. I felt like it was super important to lead up to the They Not Like Us because black manhood, Black Boy Joy, and Black fatherhood is always so heavily critiqued. And here we have a rapper that is like talking about the importance of Black fatherhood, putting his Black family in his video. You got Black men from other tribes holding their grandbabies, you know, in the midst of the things going on. And it's like, it also helps to dispel a myth. Like Black fatherhood is present and is active.
Yeah, and most importantly, and it's gangster. I think that was the exclamation point. You know what I'm saying? And it's gangster to be a daddy with your kids and your wife, and we looking good and we're happy and whole. You know, like that's gangster.
Yes.
But now, you know, we it's not so much that we picking it apart, you know, critique versus just criticizing versus just hating. You know, we this is Black Liberation Media. We're gonna ask critical questions. So I'm looking for, where is it? I can't find it. There it is. No, that's not it. Where is it at? I'm looking for, where is it? Is there a way we can, okay, well there's a question. Not the one I was looking for, but is there a way we can celebrate Black boy joy that doesn't come at the expense of Black women? I don't know. Can you, Black men? Black boys? Can you?
Absolutely. I don't necessarily think that particular. Okay, so let's break that down. There's levels of what the expense of, you know, what is it costing Black women, right? What is it costing us to see them do their thing? In that moment that I'm referring to in the pop out, I don't think that cost Black women $1, a dime, or anything. I don't think that it did. Not in that moment.
We was on stage. We was in the audience. Like,
absolutely, and we were represented. We were in the front of the picture. Shouts out to the Cuzzos girls. You know, those women were definitely doing their thing. Say that again.
Were those girls that were dancing on stage?
There was there's a group of 5 young women, and they're called Cuzzos, and they're artists. And I want to say that they were the young women that were in the very front of the picture. One of them might have even been pregnant. And then some of the other women that you saw on stage were dancers. dancers that are very notorious. You know, Tommy the Clown. Shouts out to Tommy the Clown. I was saying yesterday when we were watching the video that I remember that moment where Tommy the Clown was literally riding around with his green Mustang with his speakers in the trunk. And I can just imagine, I just want to say this before I forget. I can just imagine that at one moment, he probably looked crazy telling people, I'm gonna be like a West Coast gangster clown, and I'm gonna have like, you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine Tommy the Clown describing what he was doing to do to somebody back then? But look at him now. He has created a whole aesthetic, a whole style, a whole cultural trend. So some of the young ladies that you saw on stage,
those were his
have become popular because they're Tommy the Clown dancers. And one of them is I want to say, don't let me mistake, that young lady that's in the scene where they're in the Tams Burger in the music video. There's a young lady that's just tearing it up. She's notorious as a dancer. I dare say that she also at one point came through the Tommy the Clown kind of crew, but she's on stage as well in the picture for the pop-up.
For Black Liberation Media family, go out, YouTube, wherever you got to go look for a film called Rise. I think it's called IZE.
Yes, it is.
Rise, and it
talks if you're a Gen Z, you might not have seen it.
Yeah, but well, you go find that film and you'll understand who Tommy the Clown is, what he means to LA and the West Coast, why we love and appreciate him. It's called Rise. You've got to find it.
You got to find it. And which is so funny because I had we were talking about it and somebody from the West Coast was like, what's up with the clowns? Somebody from the East Coast was like, what's up with the clowns? You know what I mean? That is definitely a very signature South Central Los Angeles. That's a thing. So yeah, and the documentary is very powerful. About it,
even though there's, we know that was it Damon Wayans? He says that Paul Mooney, the idea for Homie the Clown on Living Color came from Paul Mooney, but the spark came from him, but that's Tommy.
Yeah, I love that. Tommy the Clown, Homie the Clown, don't play around.
Homie don't play that.
Homie don't play around. But so to the point what I was making though, in that moment of seeing those brothers on stage dancing, I do not think that cost Black women anything. I think we were a part of it. I think that we were not sacrificed in that moment. I don't think that it was at the expense of us at any version of that. What I will say though, is that one thing that we don't want to do as women is forget that everybody's paying attention anytime we speak. So when we do speak, we got to make sure that we're speaking as in variety as possible. We want to speak as many things as possible. So when we do see a lot of the stuff in hip hop right now, women are only saying like one thing right now. We don't have a lot of voices, differing voices from women in hip hop. And to a certain extent, that ain't always on them. Some of that is on us as women. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we don't always like to take accountability on that. But it ain't always at our expense because sometimes we're not coming to the table with other
well, hold on. Let me do this real quick from my radio days. Let me do a station ID. This is Root Work on Black Liberation Media. IFe JIe, who I'm speaking with, is a South Central LA native and brings a unique African sensibility, pride, and aesthetic to her art and her work as a hip-hop activist, artist, and scholar. Currently the host of Street Sankofa and the co-host of Cut to the Chase on 90.7 FM KPFK in Los Angeles. IFe JIe received both her bachelor's and master's of arts in African American Studies from Georgia State University and her PhD from UCLA. What we say, blue and gold, baby, blue and gold.
Yeah, black bros.
That's IFe JIe at the top. At the bottom, we have Tiara Mbonisi, who is a passionate womanist, writer, educator, and creative emerging from Oakland, California, deeply rooted in social justice, women's empowerment, and storytelling through mass and digital media. Tiara has built a career on these foundations. She earned her BA in Africana Studies from San Francisco State University and is now in her second year of graduate studies in the Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department at Georgia State University. And of course, I'm your host, Tandasizwe Shimaringa. Let me go back real quick to this right here. I couldn't find the original comment, but this was echoing. If we talk about at what expense black women, Dr. Dre was present and introduced the song, and everybody should know about Dr. Dre and Sister D Barnes. I know if you in LA, you know about it.
Yeah.
So
are we saying what are we saying? Are we saying cancel Dr. Dre?
I'm throwing it out there. What are you saying? What are y'all saying?
I want to weigh on this because I feel like Black women have suffered at the expense of hip hop in various ways over like hip hop's inception, right? And so we're talking about hip hop as a culture, hip hop history, and hip hop in this moment. And a journalist I follow brought up that Dr. Dre was at the pop out, and Dr. Dre is a West Coast icon, an LA icon, all those things. And so I feel like there's space to hold Black men in hip hop accountable, but there's also space for, which I think has been done, because people have talked extensively about what Dr. Dre did to D Barnes in interviews and all kinds of things. And so we're talking about 20 years later. My assumption, my hope is that Black men in hip hop are giving the space to grow, right? Because when you dig up the dirt on a lot of our greats, if you dig up Huey P. Newton, we hold him up in Oakland as an icon, but the end of his life was very violent, and it was violent against women, and it was violent against his community, but he's still an icon. So are we saying that Dr. Dre has had no growth, or he's had no accountability, or is it because we haven't heard a public apology? Like, what do we need from Dr. Dre to be like, he shouldn't be on this stage 20 something, I don't know how many years later. So I feel like you can hold people accountable, and you can still leave room and space for growth, because who Dr. Dre was then, I'm assuming that that's not him now. And it kind of depends on what you're talking about. Because if you're a pedophile, I don't know, 10 years later, 20 years later, I might not care about your growth. But if we're talking about restorative justice in hip hop, what does that even look like?
I love that. You know, I appreciate you saying that. And as I'm listening to you, I can't help but think about Chris Brown. I keep having like Chris Brown coming to my mind. Chris Brown. We forgave Chris Brown as a community, as a collective. You did, or you did not?
I did not until recently.
You did not until recently. Okay, so this brings me to 2 points. First off, what does the restorative expression look like? What does it look like when I say I am going through the process of self-reflection? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it, right? What does that look like? What are we expecting it to look like? Because when Chris Brown did the Michael Jackson tribute, and he had a moment, this is right after MJ died, he had a moment where Chris Brown started crying. I said, oh my God, we just forgave Chris Brown. I think we just forgave
because of Michael.
Chris Brown, because of this powerful Michael Jackson performance. So that's the first question. What is the measurement? What is the metrics, as they would say, right? How do we measure when someone has gone through the restorative moment, and how do you express that? What do we want to see? Do we want to see a public apology? Do we want to see a song? Do we want to see an act? Do we want to see a check being written off to ease the L? What do we want to see? And then the other thing is, what is the time frame? I like that you said 20 years ago.
Yeah. Because
what is the time frame? How long do we hold people to the fire? When is their time done and the isolation period is over and they're able to come back to the barbecue again? What does the time look like? How long do we do that?
We talk about statute of limitations like in court, and there is no statute of limitations around trauma and around grief, especially when abuse is involved. Somebody in the comments was like, restorative justice doesn't look like D Barnes struggling. And I'm gonna add to that, struggling when Dr. Dre is a billionaire. And some asked, has Dr. Dre ever publicly apologized? I don't know that he has.
I don't know that he has either.
I cannot claim to be a hip hop historian, so I haven't seen every like hip hop documentary. I've seen a few. I don't know that he has, but I would love to see Dr. Dre acknowledge that period in his life, because I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear in a moment like, I'm sorry I didn't mean to, because you meant to. But to see a man reflect on who he was back then, who's an icon to so many people, helps free other people up from those similar behaviors. But I will say, like, when you bring up Chris Brown, the only reason why I recently forgave Chris Brown, it wasn't a tribute to MJ, because Chris Brown is a talented 10th nigga. He can sing, he can dance, he can rap, he can act. Like, you being talented doesn't make me forgive you.
Mm-hmm.
What made me forgive Chris Brown is because I haven't heard his name in the media in a minute for being abusive. Chris Brown didn't fight his girlfriend in the car. Chris Brown fired on men, has fired on fans, has had rape allegations. His name was in the streets for a minute for violent offenses.
Ringing out.
So, and I be reading them court docs and them newspaper articles that people don't like to read. And so for me, there's direct apology.
Mm-hmm.
That helps the culture when you do a direct apology and a reflection. And there's also apologizing through change behavior. It appears to me that Chris Brown has changed his behavior, and he is a less violent human being than he used to be. Yeah. And so I feel I haven't heard no allegations recently of Dr. Dre putting his hands on people, but it would do the culture a service if he reflected on what happened with him and D Barnes publicly. It would.
And I don't think that, and I dare say that I wear his hip hop historian hat, so I'm a little nervous to be able to own this. But the truth is, I don't think I've ever seen Dr. Dre talk about it. I don't think Dr. Dre likes to talk about things like that in general. Mm-hmm. And when you look at Dr. Dre interviews, he's not a chatty catty kind of guy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And you don't really see him doing interviews often. In general, you got to think about that. Dr. Dre, I don't know if we've seen him on.
Probably because that's going to come up.
Yeah, so I don't think that he likes to talk about it. I don't think he wants to, but I do think, and I think that there is some truth to D Barnes struggling financially. That does look insane. Mm-hmm. That does look petty, especially when you have this man who is a notorious billionaire, and I do think hip hop can do a little better. But I also always have to bring this is that hip hop is just a microcosm of the culture. Mm-hmm. How many men do we know in general in this society are held to the fire and held accountable for their wrongdoings and atrocities towards women? How many men do we see come out apologize? I know some crazy people right now that need to get on some apology tips. We're not seeing that in the Black community.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Change behavior.
Or the change behavior, honey. My point is, it's not just hip hop.
Yeah.
So as a culture, as a community,
right.
How are we doing that?
Hip hop. But here's my thing. That word forgive gets thrown out too many times. And it's like we're ready. I mean, because we be rooting for people. I understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
We want folks to do better, but we want to forgive. The person has not asked to be forgiven. Mm-hmm. If they have not asked to be forgiven, if they ain't thinking and don't care, why are we throwing out forgiveness? Is all. That's my only concern in this.
And I'm not faking forgiveness for the culture, and I'm not talking about the publicized, the PR apology that comes out right after you did the thing to save your career. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
And I was in a really bad time. What was that Puff Daddy apology? Yeah.
It's exactly the Puff Daddy apology. That was horrible. Yeah. And he's
terrible.
He's a prime example as someone who's had a career like as a terrorist. And he's rebranded himself so many times. The rebrand of Brother Love, in my eyes, was intentional to get ahead of these type of allegations.
Look, in retrospect, yes, I'm with you. I can see that too.
And I bought into it at first. I was like, okay, Diddy.
Yeah, I'm a changed man. I love everybody. I'm getting with love. Yeah, and then we see him slapping people and dragging people out of down hallways. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I don't want to always blame hip hop. I'm big on that. I don't always want to blame hip hop. I do think that there's something to be said when we see it in the culture. It's almost like it comes to our house when it comes to the culture. and then we have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but in general, seeing a gesture, and I think one of the commentators said only the people who've been abused can be the one that can give the forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Rihanna
You know,
said she forgave Chris Brown a long time ago, and
yeah.
the feminists, me included, was like, I don't.
Yeah.
Don't forgive
And
me.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. I could feel the shift though when he cried on that in that performance. I could feel it. I was like, oh my God, he just did it. He just did it. But
he broke through.
He broke through, you know, and but I do think that there's something to be said about what do we want to do in terms of how we hold people accountable. And honestly, I didn't think about that when I saw Dr. Dre. See, some of us do think about, oh, that person is not a good person. I didn't think about that when I saw Dr. Dre at the pop out. I just saw an icon, a hip hop legend, almost pass a torch, kind of give the lob, if you will, for Kendrick to then come and do the slam dunk moment. Yeah. That's what I saw. I saw intergenerational love. I saw intergenerational prosperity there. Yeah. Say it again.
I said I have the knowledge of the history between him and D Barnes, but that's what I saw too. But also,
yeah, I didn't think about that at that moment.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of what the concern is. Criticism. Part of what the concern and criticism is we're not thinking about that. Why aren't we thinking about that? That's what I'm thinking some are saying. Let me highlight this real quick.
There's a time and a place for everything. I don't necessarily think that was the moment to hold Dr. Dre to the fire. I don't think it was that moment.
I'm just putting it out there. We love to defend the poor behavior of men. I think she says we love to cause the poor behavior of men and then turn around and talk about being the most unprotected woman. Then she says defend, I meant. I'm not quite sure what she meant, but I kind of think I know what she meant.
Okay, so put it together. We
love to defend the poor behavior of men and turn around and talk about being the most unprotected women.
I'm not defending. I don't think we're defending it. I don't know. Are we defending it? I don't think we're defending it.
No, I don't think we're doing that. I think we asked the question about restorative justice. What does a timeline look like? What do we need to forgive when we have something that happened 20 plus years ago, right? We're talking about Dr. Dre. I don't know what happened behind the scenes with his other relationships. We're just talking about what we know. Then we're talking about Chris Brown, who had a history of violence after Rihanna, not just Rihanna. I think a history of violence, a history of negative behavior, and a period in your life where you exhibited that violent behavior, and you're a better citizen society now. How do we compare what should it look like now in terms of like holding people accountable? When we go see the Bob Marley biopic, are we going to support the biopic? Or are we going to talk about the fact that Bob Marley beat his wife? Like, are we going to talk about both? Like, what do we need to do to do history justice, but also to do justice to people who like receive harm from like these iconic people?
Yeah, I lost y'all for 2 seconds. I'm sorry, my headphones went out, but I hear you with the Bob Marley thing. I didn't catch the whole sentiment of what you were saying, but you know, I don't necessarily think that we should not give space for people to be restored. I think if people make mistakes, if they are sick, because let me take a step back. Many of us as African people, we traumatized. We are traumatized people. Yeah. And unfortunately, our trauma comes out in a variety of crazy ass ways: social anxiety, sexual abuse, domestic violence, you know, and we can trace the trauma back to a very legitimate source. Okay. So we're not going to necessarily get into that. But the point of what I'm saying is that because we're all hurt, we have to give room for us to be able to be restored. Now, what that restoration looks like, I don't know what the standard is. That's what I said. What does it look like? Apology? Does it look like paying somebody off? You know, when Puff Daddy paid Cassie all of that money, was that good enough? You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that metric looks like. When do we say you've done what you were supposed to do to be restored? Because all of us are doing stuff that's crazy.
Whoever Ho is really chatty over here in the chat. I'm just saying.
I think that looks differently for different people. And I just want to clarify, I never said I forgave Chris Brown because he's not in the media.
Hold on.
I said I forgave Chris Brown because I haven't heard a recent track record of violence being reported in the media. And I'm assuming that means that Chris Brown has had some growth, because whether people want to talk about it on social media, there's a paper trail when people are in the court. Trey Songz got a long paper trail of women suing him for sexual assault. And I can pull that paper trail as a track record. And so it's deciding if certain people are allowed for growth or not. And I think that's a case-by-case situation. For me, it's a wrap for R. Kelly. Keep him where he at. You know, but Erykah Badu thinks differently. So it depends.
So I think to the sister's point, Ho, I love the handle, I guess. But Ho is saying, you know, this is yeah, what up, Ho? You know, behavior. Toxic conversation. I think and I don't know what you might be speaking to, my beloved person who's on this thing, but you know, I don't necessarily think that we're condoning abuse. I don't want to say that at all. I don't think that we're condoning that. What I want to say is that I don't stand for none of that shit. But I also am a mother and a human being. And if my son does something wrong, I give him the space to be able to be restored, to apologize for it, to be forgiven for it, to not be reminded about it every 5 seconds, and to move on and allow him to grow as a human being.
Which so I Black women, honestly.
Just say it again.
I feel like it's a burden of Black women, honestly, because to hold Black men accountable, to hold hip hop accountable, and hold them in a space as human beings when the world vilifies them in totality is what puts us in a conundrum to begin with.
Yes, I think it's an interesting place to be in. And I also want to say is that I'm going to give out punishments as well. It ain't just all passes. It ain't just all passes. No, we're going to hold you accountable. So what does that look like? Does that look like I'm not going to go to the show? I'm not going to buy the album? Yeah, that does look like that. So I want to acknowledge that we are not giving passes to people that are doing fuckery. That's not what we're doing. I do think, though, that as a culture, we have to give space for growth. We have to give space for healing. And that's on both sides, not just on our men's side. That's on our women's side as well, because there's some very toxic ass behaviors that women are starting to display as well. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to get into that part of the hip hop conversation, because that's not where we're at right now. But the BET Awards and Black women in the BET Awards was a whole nother conversation. You feel me? So just in general, I do think that we got to give space to hold people. Yes, that man did wrong. At one point, though, do we say we can appreciate that he's made some effort to be a different person and he's growing? You know, and there might be some fine lines that we just are not able to see you cross over again. R. Kelly may not be able to come to the barbecue because now we're always going to be looking over our shoulder if he's going to be looking at one of these little girls crazy, you know, or even the grown women, because he abused grown women as well, you know.
I want to address this comment real quick. No one is above reproach. Who you forgive is your personal business. Accepting someone and forgiving them isn't a community effort. It is personal. I disagree. I believe that one of the reasons Black Power Media was founded was to raise the level of conversations regarding our people collectively and how ways that we can move collectively as a collective. So many of the shows and the hosts on Black Liberation Media, which is what we are now, are members of organizations. The personal is political.
Yeah.
And that is always, I know that that's a nuance that women seem to get a lot better than men, it seems sometimes. I'm not really sure, but that's how it seems sometimes. The personal is political. And when we're talking about the Black community or the Black nation, we have to be able to talk about how we move forward towards liberation. And after we are free, how are we going to act? How are we going to treat one another? So that's the reasons why we have these kinds of conversations, need to have them more often, why we're having them here on Black Liberation Media. And if anybody got a problem with it, they can kick rocks right now.
I know that's right. And I want to say this, as much as we like to say that, I feel you, and I'm not disagreeing that what you do is your personal business, whether or not you forgive somebody. But I'm not going to front. I am that person that's like, what we doing, y'all? So we canceling them? What we doing? I am that person that sits at the dinner table like, so we back, we good with Dr. Dre again? Or I am not ever thinking of myself as an individual when it comes to certain things. And we are a culture. We're a culture. Whether you like it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not, we us. We is us, right? They ain't like us. We is us. So, it's personal, yes, but we are a collective. And I do know that if I'm at the barbecue and you play R. Kelly and I have canceled R. Kelly personally, I'm going to say something to you. Like, girl, I know you're not going to play R. Kelly at this barbecue. You're going to have to turn him off. Because we've made subconsciously, this is a collective experience. I canceled him, so you got to cancel him too. You know what I mean? So the personal, I'm with you, Tandy. I'm kind of pushing back on that a little bit as well.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Tiara.
It's so complex though, because I do hear about the collective council, right? Like, what is we doing, y'all? What's the tribe agreement on how we do
this is real?
And I feel like a part of restorative justice and hood justice is like, what are we doing? But sometimes you end up going against the grain. And just take it like, we're talking about hip hop culture is a representative of what's happening in the culture. So I have a cousin who got beat up by the boyfriend. I counsel the boyfriend.
Of course.
I don't fuck with the boyfriend.
Of course.
However, because she has children with the ex-boyfriend, some of the women in the family feel the need to interact with him based on the children, which I understand the function of it. But outside of him coming to pick up his kids, coming to drop off his kids, I've canceled him. And we're not a collective on it, because our moral standpoint, even though it bothers them, like where we want to stand on business, we stand in two different areas. So it becomes complex sometimes when people don't want to stand on business the way you want to stand on business, and then there's split and there's a divide. But I would have liked if we sat down as a family with, okay, how are we handling this? Does he come in the house, or does he get to stand at the door and receive his children? And at which point do we feel like it's safe for him to receive his children? Because will his abuse trickle down to his children? How do we know? How much time is needed? How much time do we need to see a difference in behavior? So I do like when the collective has some sense and we can discuss, that makes sense to me. The collective
when the collective got some law.
And that's true. That's true. And I think to the point of what we're saying, that it's a very nuanced thing. It's a very complex thing. At some hand, when we're talking about hip hop culture, we're not talking about an individual experience. We're talking about a collective experience. And this is why I want to put, remind the brother that even if we are doing things individually as a hip hop culture, we are a community. We're a community. We're not an individual crew. We are hip hop. We are us. And that's the whole point of why why Kendrick is really riding that wave, because we're seeing ourselves as a us. We're a collective. There's something to be said about a collective African-based, African aesthetic, Black aesthetic identity. We that. We not them. We this. You know what I mean? But it's a we. It's a we. It's a collective.
Especially a Black aesthetic identity that participates in mainstream capitalism, but has not drunken the juice. And that's what people are starting to say, like Drake then drunk the juice.
Hold on. I want to come back to this. Let me get this last comment in from Ho, and then I want to pivot real quick.
Ho done got a lot of screen time.
Yeah, I usually don't do that, but I'm going to do it today. Y'all aren't catching that your intent is not related when you state that media presence is how you determine when you forgive a notorious abuser, claiming there is effort that don't exist. And sitting on this platform requires a level of responsibility to not use such rhetoric. So
Okay,
I believes that the rhetoric is dangerous. I'm all for people who have a platform being responsible. Absolutely. But yes, Ho is getting a lot of screen time. Ho said
well,
that they're very, very chatty when it comes to abuse of women. I'm not mad about that part at all.
because she's totally
Or
experienced
abuse,
some
period.
like
Abuse,
service,
period.
have experience. And I want to say this. I think she's saying, if I understand her correctly,
We're
that
assuming.
not seeing examples of abuse in the media, the presence in the, like you're not in the media, that's measurement for growth, that's not good enough. And that I'm assuming that Ho is saying that that's very toxic, and that's a little dangerous to say because you're
Do
not
we
in the
know
media.
him? Do we know
Well,
him? Can I? You got a partner that know him so we can check up on him and see?
right,
That's all I have ever gone off of.
right.
When we're talking about R. Kelly, I'm listening to music. I'm looking at the interviews. I'm looking at the articles from the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times. I'm running the receipts on the court documents. That's all I ever have to go off of if I'm not in a community that's 3 degrees or 6 degrees of separation. Because there's some there's some hood famous rappers in Oakland that I know 3 degrees of separation, what they actually into and what they actually doing. But when we're talking about celebrity status, I only have these pieces to piecemeal together to make an assumption and to make an opinion off of.
Yeah. And I want to say this. I don't know if Chris Brown is still kicking ass behind closed doors. I wouldn't know that. But I will say to you, sister, and I don't know if Ho is a woman or not. I'm assuming that Ho is a woman. But
because hoes can be men and women in days and thems.
Right. So I don't know. I'm so forgive me in my mispronouncing you, but I'm saying her. But one thing I'm feeling from this though is that maybe you're not interested in giving space for people to change, because however that change looks, I don't know if you're satisfied with things, but if you have been abused, know that people can change. Abusers don't always stay that way. They tend to stay in spaces of toxicity if they're not willing to heal. But if people are genuinely remorseful for what they've done, then we have to give them space to transition out of that. But I think Tani said something earlier. People have to want that forgiveness. They have to want to say, I want to be a different person. I want to be seen in a different light. And if they really want that, then we have to, as human beings, we have to give them the space to experience that. And I don't think Chris Brown particularly wanted to be seen as an abuser. I don't think that he was okay with that image. He was not that guy before that. He was the boy next door image, and so I don't think that
he's a Chris Brown is just a case study, for
we're just focusing on him. Right.
But also forgiveness doesn't mean access. There's certain people in my community, in my world, that have done certain things, and based on evidence, they are making strides to be better humans, and they have rectified those behaviors, but they can't come to the cookout. They can't sit on my couch in my living room.
Right.
I forgive them through the lens of humanity because I see growth, and I don't want to make them a villain in my head and in my heart forever. But forgiveness doesn't always mean access.
That's right. Yeah. So I don't want to come off like we are naive women who are giving passes to abusive men, because I feel that's the sentiment of what Ho is kind of getting at us at.
My passes are limited. So, I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I feel you. I am personally someone who is allergic to patriarchy. I don't stand for sexism. I mean, I'm not with any of that shit. But I'm also someone who is a womanist. And I believe as a womanist that there's a space to be able to restore Black men, Black women, Black children. So I'm wanting everyone to be healed. So if a person is an abuser, they're traumatized. They are fucked up. Something's wrong with them. I don't necessarily want them to stay in that space of fucked upness. I want them to be liberated out of that. Some people cannot, though. Some people really you cannot save. But some people just need some therapy, some help, some reflection, some time, some healing, and they can be restored. So to Ho's moment, I hope that you can find space for people to grow. Because if you can find space for people to grow, then you can see where we're trying to get at with looking at restorative possibilities. Okay. I don't want us to come off like women.
IFe JIe, you said some people need what?
Healing. healing, and what else I say? I don't know.
Is ass whooping a part of that?
Oh, that part too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
like
that part too.
I
Some
feel
people
like
need an ass whooping.
I feel like a part
Good
of
morning, IFe JIe.
oh, that's sweet. I feel like a part of hood justice is an ass whooping. It shouldn't
Yes.
necessarily be like guns always being pulled out because that does not help our community. But
Yeah.
sometimes a part of restorative justice is the community call out, whether it's on
Right.
whether it's in an interview, because my theory is if we're in a community, we should try to hold people accountable behind closed doors.
Right.
When that does not work, I'm going to publicly call you out because my trying to hold you accountable, mano to mano, like in
Right.
community,
Wasn't effective. Right.
it wasn't.
Didn't work. Didn't respect it.
You might need to be called out publicly. You might need your ass whooped. You
Right.
might need a little catalyst towards your restoration. And I'm
Right. Right. And in the spirit of West Coast, and the spirit of Los Angeles, and the spirit of accountability on how the streets do, you just take that fade. So maybe that's what we need to do. Tell Dre to just run that
Run some
fade.
fades. We need to run some fades.
We'll be done with this, and he can be up back on the stage, man. You know, because at the end of the day, what we want to get to is the joy. We don't want to stay in a space of trauma, hurt, and pain. We want to get to a space of joy. That is the destination. That is the goal, not to stay in that space. You know what I mean? So if that will allow us to move forward, catch the fade and let's move on. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Tiara, are you really eating on camera? Really?
I'm hungry.
Girl,
So
listen,
look,
I will do the same thing. And in a minute, you'll eat some grits.
So look,
Yeah.
I want to read this real quick and get your response, your comments. This is from my DJ, Lene Denise. Y'all look her up if you don't know who she is.
Okay.
Lynnee Denise, Denise. Originally from LA. She's a world traveler. She calls herself an international local. Author, writer, DJ. This is the reason that I'm into South African house music today. This is what she wrote on her Instagram page either last night or this morning. And I'm only reading half of it. She says, Kendrick and the Compton community are forcing us to sit still with who they are and what makes them unlike us. And sometimes they look like us. My hope is that Kamala Harris will keep these lyrics out her mouth. And nah, I ain't voting for Biden. Now scram. Then she says, it's deep how Drake was the catalyst for the song, bringing to mind how colorism works in hip hop when the subjects are the rappers themselves. And then in parentheses, not the women they choose as objects of desire. But it's bigger than Drake, bigger than a rap beef. I genuinely believe this moment is a Black global call to think critically about who and how we define, ourselves, regardless of the sense of powerlessness we feel as we witness multiple genocides, climate change havoc, the persistence of COVID, and a straight up Supreme Court led coup. Lest we forget, Biden played a critical role in confirming Clarence Thomas. All I'm saying is hip hop ain't dead. Hip hop, the good and the ugly, is the blues, a lens to examine and critique them while centering pleasure for us.
That was very pretty. I'm a writer.
Pretty?
I'm a writer, so when she said hip hop, the good and the ugly is the blues, I say yes. It is.
That was cute. That was cute. Yeah, I like that. That was powerful. That was powerful.
But again, so she's talking about the fact that this is bigger than these two brother men's.
It is.
Colorism aspect.
I mean, the colorism aspect, obviously for obvious reasons, I don't like conversations like that. I wasn't raised with. Anyway, I hate conversations of colorism. It really annoys me. I wish as a community we could get past that. I hate that we have not. You know what I mean? I personally, I don't even want to get into conversations like that. But what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to get from that, yes, I do. Sitting playing leads to a culture of obesity healing after that. After them phase. Yeah. So what I want to talk about is the us. Who's us now? Who's defining who gets to be us? Because Kendrick has made, he's kind of made us is a certain flavor of authenticity. Us is not the mainstream. I think my sister said that earlier. You know, Drake is like the pop. Kendrick is more like the people. You know, so us is definitely the streets. You know, us is definitely folks of color, and it's not just black folks, because you have black and brown at the pop-up. So I want to acknowledge that as well. I forget the name of the group or the artist that perform. It was like a Latino hip hop artist, because if you're gonna be West Coast, you got to have our brown brothers in the pot as well. Absolutely. And you know, so us is also the melanated us. So who gets to be us? And I think to the sister's comment, Kamala Harris, is she us? Is she not us? Is Biden for us? Is he not for us? You know, and this collective identity can be very, very powerful, because now we're talking about politics and collective. See, as I mentioned to you before, I might cancel R. Kelly, but I'm coming to the barbecue to ask, are we canceling R. Kelly? We have to honestly acknowledge that we do the same thing in politics. I'm voting for Biden. Who y'all voting for? Who we voting for? What we doing? What we doing? What we doing? Right? So the collective voting is a thing, but it also is a thing that allows us to have real political power. So if we say that the us is a authentic for the people in the streets, you know, a certain aesthetic of not in the mainstream, right? If that's the us, having that collective identity can be very, very powerful. Because if we're saying now, who stands with us? Does Kamala stand with us? Does, you know what I mean? And to the colorism thing, it's like, well, do the light skin stand with us, or do the dark skin stand with us? And that to me can be very divisive. That's why I don't like to get conversations.
I just didn't see it in the beef, if I'm being honest. Like,
I didn't see that either. But you know, maybe
when Kendrick was calling Drake out for like being mixed, it was really a play on his authenticity, because J. Cole is mixed. That's why that critique didn't come to J. Cole, because people largely feel that J. Cole is authentic. And when Kendrick starts to say, oh, you come to Atlanta for this kind of cred. You met with this rapper for this kind of cred. Right. You posting up with
You're trying to find authenticity in other places.
You're seeking authenticity, but you're not it. So it's really.
And then he's from Canada, and you can't ignore that part, because that would be different if he was from a city here. You know,
he's from Canada. He has a Jewish white mother. He is a black father from the South, but his identity is rooted in like Canadian black culture, Jewish culture, and he's been able to participate in Black American culture, which is rooted in in a very specific history. And so I feel like we're saying, like, you can't just play around with our history. You can't just play with our culture, like, for money's sake. Like, sure, we want to make money. We want to get money, but this is not your culture to play with like that.
Yeah. And that's what I mean in terms of the now we're different. We're different. This is not that. This is an authentic African experience in the bellies of the beast of every urban center in America. That's us. You know, when I go to Chicago and I see my dudes, you know, playing basketball on the courts of Chicago, that's us. When I go to DC and I see it at the Go-Go's, that's us. You see what I'm saying? But I think that there's something that's really, really powerful about how we're defining us. There could be something really magical if we say, I tease and I say the most gangster thing that you could do is to stand up to oppression. That's gangster. As I mentioned before, having your family in place, that's gangster. So we start redefining even what that look like. What does it mean to be on your square? What does it mean to be on your real G? You know what I mean? How does that really look? That don't have nothing to do with what America has defined for us. That has something to do with what we define for ourselves. That's self-determination at its finest. That's a beautiful moment. And we really could ride that. We really could ride that as a culture. Right now, Kamala Harris, is she for us? If somebody came out and posed that to these politicians, are they for us? It would literally, every black person in America would get the question. Every black person in America would get the question, because we all tuning into that song right now. Oh, we are us. We is us. Ooh,
and that's why I said it's an affirmation and a call to action. Like, what
does that, I love that
mean? Just because they ask you to be in a campaign video or to do a thing at the presidential election, blah 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 blah, doesn't mean that they're like us and that they're for us. It just doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a valid question for us to ask. And if men in hip hop are really questioning if Black men are being good fathers, present fathers, and they're really questioning how they treat women and if they're preying on young women, and I need those questions to be asked by men. I'm tired of
Right.
asking them. They don't care
Right.
about it.
That's where it needs to be. That's what you got to talk amongst each other, hold each other accountable. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Great moment. Great commentary from the DJ. Shouts out to South African house music. I'm into it too. I like it a little bit. Yeah.
All right, so it is 10:23 a.m. a.m. Yeah, it's 10:23 LA time.
Yeah, that's enough, Tiny. All right.
Yeah, of course, this is the subject that we could talk about all day long.
Yeah.
But
No doubt.
but my regular my re- hold on one second. Let me ban somebody real quick from the.
Somebody getting canceled real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, let me get them the hell up out of here with they
These
dumb shit.
hoes is acting
Uh,
up. These hoes are acting up.
yeah, so I was gonna say, if they've been watching Black Liberation Media, they know that me and Arthritis have got a thing going on, and he knocking on the door. So I'm gonna have to cut this short. But if folks want to find out how to follow you, how what it is that you're doing, the work that you're involved in, Tiara, let's start with you. How can people do that?
You can find me on Instagram at Tiara Mbonisi, Facebook at Tiara Mbonisi. I also have a brand called Big Mouth Woman, where I'm just uplifting the voices of women. My thesis project is about Black journalists, Black activists, and I think that having discourse and important conversations is how you push the culture forward. And so I'm never afraid of dissent or disagreements. Is literally how we grow.
Yeah.
So please follow. I follow.
Not disrespect though. We don't do that.
Yeah, no disrespect. Keep it tight, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Tiara Mbonisi on Instagram and on Facebook.
And Dr. IFe JIe.
Oh, so much love again to everybody that's been chiming in on the commentary. This has definitely been a much needed conversation. I want us to continue to ride this wave. I hope that we don't lose this passion. And I hope that everybody is really in a space of really being re-inspired about the power of hip hop culture. Y'all know my whole thing is if hip hop is not used for our liberation, it absolutely will be used for our destruction. And so we got to remember that there's a real political power and magic within hip hop culture. So if anybody wants to follow my movement, the journey is Street Sankofa. I feel like it's a really good time for us to go back and get the power of this music so that we can be very intentional on using it as we restore our African consciousness in the future. We done lost our damn minds. And hopefully hip hop will help us get our brains back together. Okay, so the movement is Street Sankofa. IFe JIe is the name. Dr. J is the handle. And please follow me on all platforms. IFe JIe is the name. I love y'all. I appreciate everybody. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for letting us pop out and show
up. Oh, yeah.
Thank y'all for putting up with me and my scheduling and all this, that, and the other. But appreciate the hell out of y'all, and definitely want to have y'all back.
Of course, I would love to.
Definitely want to have you back. So appreciate, and love y'all. Okay.
All right. Peace out.
All right. Black Power, y'all.
Okay. So I told you in the beginning that you was going to get caught up in the show and you was going to forget to like, subscribe, and share. Would you please now go like this video, go subscribe on the Patreon, Black Liberation Media. You can subscribe on YouTube too. They acting kind of funky right now, but please subscribe. You can also subscribe to my individual channel, Rootwork, and please share this video. It's all about having the discussions. It's all about having the discussions, but with respect. Unlike these FBA and ADOS people who try to come up in the chat and in the comments, y'all gonna get dismissed with a quick. If I see you, you gonna be dismissed with a quick. You gonna be kicked into the trash can. You need to know that for the next time you come up in here like that. But yeah, like, subscribe, share. Please continue to support the channel. Please continue to support the platform. Thank you so much, Audrey, for coming through. Why you laughing, Chris? You know how they do. Thank you so much, Love My Fro. Thank you so much. Is it Rao's pasta sauce? Where is it at? Jamama. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Brenda, thank you for coming through, Brenda. Dr. Mom, thank you. Amapiano, South African. I don't know what it is, but it's good. GT, thank you for coming through. Thank you for coming through. No, it's not Afro. Yeah, no, Amapiano is not Afrobeat. Absolutely not. Love them both, but no, where are you at? Where are you at? Came in late, but enjoyed it. You just gonna have to make time so that you can watch from the beginning. Come on, man. Angela Nicole Walker, thank you so much for coming through. Hey, Quaker Anarchist, thank you for coming through. Thank you, the 2000 Jeremy. Thank you, Leah Boggs. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming through. Y'all stay safe. Take care. Please continue to support the channel. And I'm out.